Yo, what is up guys, your boy IzuKage here with the movie for What If Deku at Haki. You guys have been asking me every single day when is this gonna drop, and it is finally here, so I don't want to hold you guys up much. Of course, Discord link and the link to some fire anime merch in the description. And with that said, let's get right into the what if. We start this story off with Inko, Izuku, and Hisashi on their way to the quirk doctor. So yes, Hisashi is still gonna be around in this. So Izuku, he's in the back of the car. He's just playing with his action figures, just enjoying life pretty much. And they pull up to the parking lot to the doctor's office, and then they walk in just waiting to be called in by their personal doctor. And this doctor, they've gone to years and years. This isn't Dr. Izuku, just another random doctor. So the entire time, Hisashi, he's playing around with Izuku, you know, they're having fun, and not long after, the doctor comes out into the hallway and calls them in. But before they do so, Hisashi, he grabs Izuku and says to him, "No matter if you have a quirk or not, I know you'll be just like All Might." And he shows him the action figure, and Izuku just gives him a big smile, and then they go into the doctor's office. So they get seated and the doctor says, "Hisashi, long time no see, how's everything?" And Hisashi says, "You know, life's good, we just came to find out if our little Izuku has a quirk." So the doctor's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem, we can do this really quickly." So he takes Izuku around the back, does a few tests and an x-ray. So after about 10 minutes, the doctor, he comes back with Izuku, who runs to Hisashi, and he sits on his lap. So the doctor sits down with a heavy sigh and starts flipping through a folder and says, "Well, Inko, Hisashi, I don't know how to say this, but Izuku, he hasn't developed a quirk. This is troubling because at this age, most kids would be developing their quirks, but he may be a late bloomer." And hearing this, Izuku started crying his eyes out. And Inko took him from Hisashi to, you know, cheer him up. And Hisashi asked, "When do you think he'll develop it?" And the doctor, he sighs and says, "It's hard to tell, I can't produce an accurate time, but after 8 years old, I would say all hope is lost." And Hisashi, he looks down really sad because he knows in this world, not having a quirk means you're gonna be ridiculed your entire life. He knows the challenges Izuku is gonna have to face. But the doctor, he starts flipping back through his folders to the very back and says, "Well, I did find something peculiar," and this piqued Hisashi's interest, and he went on to say, "Izuku does have one joint in his toe indicating he may develop a quirk, but it could be what we call an inactive quirk." And Hisashi raised an eyebrow and said, "Inactive quirk? What?" And the doctor continues and says, "Well, of course, you probably don't know about it. There's only one other person with this. His name is Rayleigh. It's been years, I can't even remember right, but his inactive quirk boosted what he called his spiritual energy. But from all our records, it's basically useless, but that's all I could really think of." And Hisashi said, "It's okay," and he got up and shook the doctor's hand, and Inko, who was still carrying Izuku, was crying. They took him back to the car. But before they drove off, Hisashi, he turned to Izuku and said, "Remember what I said earlier, with or without a quirk, you can still be just like him," and pointed to Izuku's action figure. So Izuku, he wiped his tears and nodded, and they returned home. So a few months go by, and at school, the bullying has started as soon as news got around that Izuku was quirkless, and all his friends switched up almost immediately. But this never got to Izuku. He would just go to school, endure the bullying, and when he got home, he would run around the backyard lifting up really heavy stones, just anything to get stronger, so he can make his dad finally proud and become the #1 hero. But unfortunately, Hisashi isn't going to be around for a while. So one night, Inko and Izuku were on the couch just watching TV, chilling. And Hisashi, he went out to grab some groceries earlier. It's been like an hour and a half now and he isn't back. And that's when Inko, she's starting to get worried, but she's probably just gonna call him in the next 5 minutes. But that's when Inko, she hears a news report on a fatal car crash, and she was gonna ignore it, but then she saw Hisashi's face and name all over the screen, and her focus was 100% on the TV. And then her phone rings and it was Mitsuki, and all she said was, "I'm coming over." The entire week, Inko was a mess, crying at every moment Hisashi came to her mind. She locked herself in her room, and Izuku, he didn't really understand, but what he did know was his dad was gone for a very long time. But this never stopped Izuku from keeping active, gaining more muscle, and just becoming stronger overall. So eventually, Inko, she would get over it and there would be the funeral and everything. And after that, she would mainly focus on Izuku's development. So at the age of around 5 years old is when Izuku, it really clicked to him that his dad wasn't coming back, because Izuku, he had a better understanding of death, and yeah, he just knew that he would never see his father again. But instead of Izuku being really mournful, I mean, yeah, he was sad his dad died, but it was more encouraging to him. This just proved his point that he needs to be stronger for his dad's sake. So from now on, whatever Izuku is doing, he would be training. If he was doing homework, he was doing grip training with his other hand at the same time. If he was eating, he would do like 5 push-ups for every bite he has. And by 8 years old, Izuku was an absolute unit. He didn't have any superhuman strength or anything. He was just a really muscular and really tall kid. Think of Izuku after his whole training with All Might. So that's the type of build Izuku has right now as an 8-year-old. And Izuku would continue this training all throughout elementary and middle school. So one day when Izuku was 10 years old, Bakugou is realizing a lot of people are starting to have respect for this quirkless loser. And to him, this is a big no. Like, you're not having any respect as a quirkless person. You're weak. You aren't even supposed to be on the same level as anyone. So before class started that day, Bakugou, he walked up to Izuku and snatched his book, and Izuku immediately grabbed his wrist and said, "Give it back." And Bakugou laughed and said, or what? Not like you have a quirk or anything. And hearing that struck a chord with Izuku, and he got up out of his chair, and Izuku was legit towering over Bakugou. He was really tall. And Bakugou was shocked for a second, but he regained his bearings and said, "You can't beat me, you damn Deku." And Izuku, he lunged for his book and grabbed it, but Bakugou at the same time set off an explosion right in his chest, knocking Izuku back. And Izuku, he grabbed his chest in pain, and the students in the class, they gasped because Izuku, his chest was now completely burned. But he got up and he really didn't look fazed from the attack. He just got up and started walking towards Bakugou because he wanted his book. But as Izuku kept coming closer to Bakugou, he kept letting off explosion after explosion. But Izuku kept walking until Bakugou hit the lockers at the back of the class, and by now, Izuku's entire shirt was burned off. He was bleeding all over, and parts of his chest, you can see his muscle is exposed. And Bakugou is like, "What kind of freak are you? Just take the damn book." And he throws it at his face. And Izuku, he grabs it and then takes another step towards Bakugou and said, "Mess with my stuff again, and I won't be so defensive next time." So Izuku, he packs up his stuff and went to the nurse's office because he knows he can't lose too much blood. And when he came into the office, the nurse was freaking out, like Izuku was just in a villain attack or something. He had third-degree burns. As I said, like the muscle was visible under his skin. Just everything was wrong about this, and she was surprised he was so calm. He was basically unfazed. So she could only like imagine the pain he's going through. So she patched him up and sent him off to home so he could recover, and made a report to the principal about it. And like she already knew that this was Bakugou's doing, so immediately Bakugou got a week suspension. So we fast forward 3 years later to the end of middle school, and the teacher comes into the class and he's saying, I was going to like hand out these job application forms, but I know you all want to be heroes. And he throws the papers up into the air all excited, and the students feel the same energy. They're really excited. They're using their quirks, and Bakugou and Izuku are the main ones staying silent in all of this chaos. And the teacher is like, all right, everyone, calm down, calm down. I actually see here that we have 2 students that want to go to UA. And people are kind of surprised at who is the second student. Of course, one of them is going to be Bakugou, but who else is applying? And then the teacher, he starts looking at the application form, and he adjusts his glasses and says, Izuku, you want to go to UA? And people are actually shocked by this because he doesn't have a quirk. Yeah, they understand that Izuku, he's pretty strong and he's held his own against quirked people in the school, but being a professional hero and defeating some like 5th graders is a completely different thing. So they don't know how Izuku is even going to be a quirkless hero. But Bakugou, he actually doesn't say anything about this. He keeps quiet, he keeps to himself, and people are like whispering to themselves. They don't know if Izuku will be able to make it or anything, but Izuku, he just ignores them all. So the teacher, he's like, okay, that's interesting and I wish you all luck, but I mean, that's it for today. And he dismisses class. So Izuku, he just grabs all his stuff and he jumps out the window, and people are like, what the hell is he doing? And they run over to the window and just see that Izuku, he lands and starts running off. So Izuku, he is running late because his mom wanted to take him to the U.S.J. to celebrate him being a high schooler, and this time the U.S.J. actually stands for Universal Studios of Japan. So Izuku decided to take a shortcut on his way home through an alleyway, but as he's running through, a manhole cover in front of him, it shoots open and this slime monster started emerging from the sewers. And then he's saying, ugh, I can't believe I escaped All Might. I need to find a body and quick. And then the sludge villain focuses his vision onto Izuku, and he's like, oh, perfect. So he rushes at Izuku, and Izuku, he tries running away, but Izuku, as I said, he doesn't have any superhuman abilities. He's just faster than the average 13-year-old and stronger than the average 13-year-old. So Izuku, he tries running, but the sludge villain is way faster and catches up, and he starts engulfing Izuku in his sludge. And Izuku, he's like on the verge of death. Like, he can't breathe. He's losing consciousness, and as everything is going dark, visions of his father starts appearing in his head, and how he said he was going to be just like All Might one day. And Izuku, he was like, I'm not gonna die to some damn villain. And then this rage boils over, and Izuku taps into his latent quirk ability, this spiritual energy that he has, and it radiates around his body and expands around him, like shooting the sludge villain off of him and knocking him unconscious. And this was a really low power version of Conqueror's Haki. So as Izuku did this, he feels a bunch of energy drain from his body. But at the same time, Rayleigh, who is in the My Hero world, he's going to be like Izuku's sort of teacher. He senses someone using spiritual energy, and it catches him off guard. So he goes towards it, and he sees this kid in an alleyway, like limping out. So Rayleigh, he like goes down in front of Izuku, and then he's looking over to the sludge villain and then back to Izuku. And Izuku, he sees this man standing over him, and he's like, who are you? And Rayleigh, he doesn't respond and said, kid, what did you just do? And Izuku, he looks back and sees the sludge villain, and he's like really exhausted at this point, and he thinks that Rayleigh just saved him, and he's like, oh my god, thank you for saving me. I thought I was gonna die. And Rayleigh, he's like, yeah, sure kid, no problem. And what's running through his mind right now is that Rayleigh, he's thinking that this kid can tap into spiritual energy as well, because when he was around Izuku's age right now, he found out that he had this same spiritual energy, and he spent basically his entire life trying to make it useful and master it in some way. And throughout that process, he's developed 3 different main ways of using it, and that would be Conqueror's Haki, Observation Haki, and Armament Haki. And Rayleigh, he did want to become a pro hero, but at this point he's too old just to join and show up on scene, so he wants to pass down his knowledge onto Izuku. So he begins to tell Izuku that he actually has a ability to give a quirk to quirkless people and give them a chance to become pro heroes. And Izuku, he was actually really fascinated by this, but he said, nah, I'm good. I want to become the #1 hero through my own blood, sweat, and tears. So Rayleigh, he can like definitely see where Izuku's coming from. Like, he must have trained really hard, because he can look at him right now and Izuku has a really good physique, so he must have been training really hard his entire life. So Rayleigh, he's trying to persuade Izuku in some way of just giving him the chance of training him. So he says, alright, I'll just train you, give you some martial arts tips, because I am a master after all. And Izuku, he thinks about it and he's like, well, how much will it cost? And Rayleigh is like, aha, well, it's gonna be free. And Izuku is like, free, you say? Well, free is my middle name. Just give me a time and a place. So Rayleigh, he tells Izuku to meet him at a park near a forest where they'll start their training. So Izuku, he's pretty excited and runs off back home. And then he and Inko, they go to, the U.S.J. So Rayleigh, he decides to watch Izuku from afar, seeing if he displays any of these techniques on his own, or was that just a one-time thing. So as Rayleigh leaves, All Might, he appears on scene and he sees the sludge villain splattered all over the wall, and he's like, okay, I guess that makes my job way easier. So he just bottles the sludge villain and takes it to the police station without much issue. So after a fun day with Inko, Izuku, he returns home and gets some good rest for the day, like for tomorrow with his training with Rayleigh. So Izuku, when he wakes up, he immediately puts on some, clothes he would normally work out with, and tells Inko he's just gonna jog. So he goes to the same place that Rayleigh instructed him to, and there he sees Rayleigh just chilling on a bench waiting for him. And Izuku, he runs up to him and says, so are we gonna start our training? And Rayleigh, he looks at his watch and he's like, damn, you're pretty early, I guess you're excited. So he takes Izuku into a clearing in the forest and he puts on a blindfold on him, and Izuku is like, what is this gonna do? And he says, just imagine yesterday what you did to the sludge villain, and just trying to dig deep into that energy that you have within you. And Izuku, he's like, energy, sludge villain, what? And really, he's just like, just act on your instincts, basically. So he blindfolds Izuku and tells him to try and predict where he's gonna hit him. And Izuku, he's like, how am I gonna do that? You literally blindfolded me. I am blind. So this goes on for hours with Rayleigh. He has a stick and he's beating Izuku around. And at this point, Izuku, he has bruises all over his skin, and like 3 hours in, he's like, okay, I'm done. What are you doing? And Rayleigh, he's just like, he's having a hard time explaining it, because he's always just known how to do it. He's never really had to explain this sort of thing. So being a teacher for it is kind of difficult. So he's trying to come up with the best explanation, and he's saying, Izuku, you have to not doubt yourself. And he grabs Izuku's shoulder and says, you have to be calm. Come, take some breaths in and out. And, they take some breaths in and out. And he says, now I want you to sense the energy around you. And he draws the blindfold back down under his eyes. And he starts walking around Izuku in a circle. And then he strikes him in the back with the stick. And Izuku still can't do it. And this goes on for another hour. But then when Rayleigh strikes Izuku again with the stick, he manages to move in the right direction, but it wasn't quick enough and he still gets hit. And Rayleigh's like, okay, I'm seeing some improvements. So the next day comes around and they continue the same training, and Izuku is slowly getting better and better at this, and he can dodge a few attacks in a row. So really, he's really impressed at Izuku's improvement over just 2 days. But Izuku hasn't mastered it in the slightest. He is just barely tapping into it. So after about 2 months, Izuku can practically really easily dodge incoming attacks from both beast and actual people, and he can be able to sense someone's strength and emotions from it. So after successfully dodging around 70 attacks from Rayleigh, he takes Izuku deeper into the forest, and there they encounter one of the beasts of the forest, this massive bear. And the bear runs at Rayleigh, and Izuku is like, watch out. But Rayleigh begins to explain that the next prominent type of Haki is armament Haki, and it's like wearing an invisible shield. So as the bear comes and swipes and tries to attack Rayleigh, he just puts up his hand and it blasts it back onto the rocks behind it, and this hurt the bear a lot, and it whimpers off. So Izuku, he's impressed at what he just did, and Rayleigh says, you'll have to learn this, but it's going to be a lot harder than observation Haki. Apologies for interrupting your viewing experience, but I couldn't help but notice you haven't checked out the anime apparel website Fandom. Fandom is a website that has amazing anime designs from Demon Slayer to Naruto to My Hero. You want it, and they more than likely have it. And best of all, you can use code IzuKage for 5% off. And the holidays are coming up. You can get one as a gift for your dad or mom. Trust me, they'll love it. And make sure to use the link in the description to copy your anime apparel. So let's get back to the video. Izuku, he would continue his training with Rayleigh for the months leading up to the UA entrance exams. And he would go on to not master, but he would be really proficient in armament and observation Haki. And Rayleigh is just telling him that Conqueror's Haki is just something he cannot teach him. So all Izuku has to do is just put in the practice, because, well, practice makes perfect. So as long as Izuku keeps at it, he will eventually become way stronger than even he is. And Izuku, hearing this, is just amazed at the potential of what his quirk can do. So Izuku, Rayleigh, he's hyping him up, so, he's kind of feeling himself right now. And that's when he's going to start the UA entrance exams. So Izuku, he walks up to the front gates of UA, and as soon as he gets there, the first person he sees that he recognizes is Bakugou. And Izuku doesn't say anything to Bakugou as he's walking past. And out of the corner of his eye, Bakugou is like, wait, is that Izuku? And he turns around and he sees someone completely different from the Izuku he knew. First off is Izuku's hair was a lot longer and more wild looking because he spent a lot of time in the forest. So Izuku, he would come out with a lot of scars and bruises all over his body, just giving him a more manly look, I would guess. And Izuku, he was a bit taller, nothing crazy, but he definitely had a short growth spurt over the 9-month training period. So Izuku, he walks in and goes to register his name, and when the person there is looking up Izuku in their database, they realize that Izuku does not have a quirk. And the lady looks up at Izuku and says, "Are you sure you want to do this? You don't have a quirk. It would be pretty irresponsible of me to like not give you any advice, like to tell you not to go." And Izuku, he says, "Trust me, I am 100% ready for this." And the lady at the desk, she shrugged and said, "Alright," and gives him a stamp and gives him this paper with his candidate number, and he just has to walk in and find his seat. So Izuku, he takes his paper and enters this room with a bunch of desks and chairs, and everyone has to go to their assigned seat to do the written portion of the entrance exams. And after everyone is seated, it is a massive hall because it is a bunch of people here. Like, not everyone is in one room. There's multiple rooms with like desks and chairs and stuff, but there's a lot of people just in this one room, like about 50 students. And then Nomu comes in and he starts to explain to everyone that this school doesn't only matter how strong you are, but intellect is really important, especially in changing the tide of a battle. Like, a villain may be stronger than you, but with the intellect you've gained and over different experiences, you can easily beat a villain that's way stronger than you. So after saying that, everyone, they got a bit of motivation, and then they start handing out not handing out papers, because this is UA. Everyone gets like a laptop screen comes up from their desk or something, and it has all the tests on it, and you just have to choose your answer. So Izuku, after he's finished all of his test questions, he's given his score like on the spot. And Izuku gets a respectable 96%. And everyone who got below 70%, they're asked to leave because that's how high the bar is to get into this school. So after that's done, about a third of the original crowd of people go into the lecture hall, where President Mike is there starting to explain the next stage of the entrance exams, like with the different robots. And as he's going through them, Ida, he didn't hear President Mike talk about the 0-pointer. So he gets up and says, "Pardon my intrusion, but I fail to recall the fact that you did not mention the 0-pointer." And President Mike is looking at Ida and he just face palms like, "Oh, we have one of these." And President Mike, he puts on a fake smile and says, "Well, if you had allowed me to get to it, we would have gone over it by now." And everyone hearing this, they started laughing at how dumb Ida is. And then he got like a bit reserved and just sinks back into his seat. So President Mike, after dealing with that nuisance, he does go over the 0-pointer and then tells everyone to go to their assigned gates. And Izuku, he goes to his and is just waiting the whole time. But while he is, there's this girl with short brown hair, and she looks pretty nervous. And Izuku, he was like, I'll probably cheer up. So he starts walking over to her, but Ida, he runs in, protecting this damsel in distress, and says, "How dare you? You were going to sabotage her chances of getting into UA, weren't you?" And Izuku, he's so confused, like, no, I was literally going to go over there to do the complete opposite, actually give her words of encouragement. And Ida is like, "Sure, I don't believe you." And then he says, back up before I call one of the teachers." And Izuku, he's just like, whatever. And he just turns around and heads back to the wall and waits. And while they are waiting, President Mike, he comes over the intercom and says, "You guys are still waiting? There's no countdowns in a real fight. Go, go, go." So everyone rushes out at max speed out of the gates and into the mock city. And as Izuku, he runs out as well and takes the first right corner, and he is immediately surrounded by 3 1-pointers. And as Izuku, he's planning out how he's going to deal with these 3 robots, from the observation room, the teachers and Nezu, they're watching. And All Might, he points to Izuku and says, "Isn't this kid quirkless?" And Nomu, he starts going through Izuku's record and he says, well, not exactly. He is classified as quirkless, but the doctor put a note here that the kid does have some sort of energy system that's different from anything in this world, but he's not sure how Izuku would utilize it in any way. So he just put it down as Izuku being quirkless. And Nomu, he's looking at Izuku wondering if he figured out how to use this. So they go on to watch him, and Izuku, he's, as I said, surrounded by 3 one-point robots, and they all, like, in sync, punch at Izuku, and Nomu, he blocks his eyes like, "Ooh, I didn't want to see that." And then he looks up again, and when the one-pointers start to drive back, because, you know, they have tire tracks, not actual feet, so they reverse to get their fist off Izuku, and they look at him, and Izuku, he's completely fine, but there's something a bit off. Izuku, he has he doesn't have the black aura of Haki, he just has a sort of red aura around him generally, and then his arm turns completely black, and he punches the robot in front of him, sending it flight over into the next city, like a next group of students who are doing the entrance exam as well. So it flies all the way over there, and All Might watching this is like, "Son, is that you?" And Nomu and Nezu, he's like, "Snap out of it, All Might. How is this kid this strong?" So they continue to watch Izuku completely massacre these robots with 0 effort. So real quick, let me actually explain how Izuku even protected himself against those attacks from the one-point robots. So as Izuku was about to get hit, instead of because right now he can only use Haki in one part of his body, so instead of using this really strong Haki in one part of his body, he weakened it and covered his whole body so it would protect him from the blow. And since these robots aren't really that strong, it didn't take much to block the attack. That's why a weakened version of Armament Haki could block it. So Izuku, as I said, he's going around like wrecking these robots, and then Izuku, he starts to feel what seems to be an earthquake, and then he sees a group of students running away from a certain direction of the city, and as Izuku is watching them run past him, Ida, he accidentally bumps into Izuku, and Izuku asks him like, "Why is everyone running? What's the problem?" And Ida looks Izuku dead into the eyes and said, "Run, we can't take it down." And Ida, he runs off, and Izuku, he's so confused, and out of curiosity, he went to check out what was going on. And as he was walking closer and closer to these massive tremors in the ground, he hears a girl shout out for help, and hearing this, Izuku, he can't turn back now. So he rushes in, and around a building in front of him, Izuku sees Uraraka trapped under a pile of rubble. And Izuku, he goes into action like that second. It's like his body moved on its own. And Izuku starts throwing off the stones off of Uraraka's leg, and he picks her up, and Izuku, he turns to his left, and that's when he sees the massive 0-point robot. And Izuku, who's holding Uraraka like bridal style, like she's basically laying in Izuku's arms, and Uraraka tells Izuku just to run, we can't take it down. So Izuku, he knows more, he like has enough sense to say to himself that he needs to run, like he can't fight whilst having to save Uraraka at the same time. So Izuku, he starts running and putting a weakened version of Haki into both of his legs, so they don't turn black, they just have a red aura around his legs. And Izuku starts running a bit faster than usual. Like, I wouldn't say he would be able to catch up with Ida, but definitely compete against him. So Izuku got Uraraka to safety, and the 0-pointer was far behind them, and soon enough the match was called, like the ending of the match was called, and everyone returned home. So while at home, Izuku, he would not lay up on his training. Every single chance Izuku gets, he is doing some sort of training. But between these training sessions, Izuku, he would find some time to go outside for, a bit. And one of those times, he went to have a bit of fun. He went to the mall. I mean, he didn't have much friends, but that's where a lot of people would go just to walk around for no reason. So Izuku, when he gets there, he's looking at all the different stores and he goes into his wallet and sees that his mom only gave him like $30, which is what, like 3,000 yen, which is not really that much. So Izuku just decides to spend his time going around to different stores looking at things he can't buy, kind of like me, and he would go to different food stalls to get some food because he's like walking around for at least 2 hours. So when Izuku, he's going to leave, he's walking past one of the clothing stores, and from the store comes this girl with a bunch of bags. She's holding like 20 bags of clothes and different other products, and Izuku, his instinct was just to rush over and help her, which he did. And Izuku like lifted like 10 off of her and said, are you good? Like, I can help you out. And this being Momo, she's like, oh my god, you're my lifesaver, thank you so much. And Izuku said, shouldn't you have someone out here to help you? This is a lot. And Momo, she confessed that she didn't mean to buy this much. She just went into the store for one dress, and she points to all the bags and said, well, this happened. And Izuku, he just laughed a bit, and Momo said, come, follow me. I'll take you to my limo to put these in the back of the car. And Izuku, he raised an eyebrow and said, limo? Okay, alright. So Momo, she starts walking outside, and Izuku, he sees the limo, and Momo walks up to it, and if she doesn't open the door, like someone goes in and opens the door for her, and Izuku, he puts the stuff inside, and Momo, he can't thank Izuku enough, and he says, oh, it's no problem, I was just in the right place at the right time. And Momo, she just gives Izuku a smile and waves goodbye. So she enters the limo and the driver takes her off back to her house. So with that, the following week, while Izuku is at home, he's just in his room chilling on his computer. He's actually playing a game while listening to What If Naruto Went Back in Time, like the movie. It's a pretty dope series. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Because Izuku, it's one of his favorite series on this guy's channel. It's called IzuKage, and he's 100% subscribed. He likes all the videos. He's a huge fan. So Izuku, while he's playing his games, he gets a call from Inko from downstairs, and Izuku, he talks to his friends on the VC, like on Discord, and says, yo, I'll be right back, guys, my mom's calling me. So Izuku, he rushes downstairs, and Inko, she has a letter and she looks really excited. Izuku sees this golden letter in Inko's hand, and it has the two massive letters on it, UA. And Izuku, seeing this, already knows what this letter is for. So both Inko and Izuku go to the dining table, and Izuku opens it, and from the envelope comes out this little disc. It's sort of similar to a coaster, like those small discs you put your cup on. Kind of like that, and from it a hologram of Nezu, it shows up, and it starts to explain all of Izuku's performances during the entrance exam, mainly the written section of the exam, stating that Izuku was one of the highest scoring in the whole exam. And Inko, hearing this, she's obviously proud of Izuku, and she's can't be any more excited. But if it couldn't get more, All Might, a hologram of All Might, shows up, and All Might has this big smile, and he starts to explain how much points Izuku got in the second stage, in the physical portion of the exam. And Izuku got 432 points, and All Might's explained that this has crushed his record when he was at UA. It is just unbelievable how many points Izuku got. And Inko, she was way more excited than Izuku because of this, and she had a whole night of excitement planned. They went to eat at a seafood place, and there was a festival in town, so they went there. They had different rides and attractions. It was just an amazing time, and Izuku realized that all of his hard work is just so he can have these, really cool moments with his family. So after that amazing night out, Izuku finally would start getting ready for his first day at UA, which is the next day. So Izuku, the next morning, he puts on his uniform, goes down, grabs something to eat, and he heads off to UA. And when Izuku walks up to the front gate, he's just admiring the absolute size of this massive school. So Izuku, he smiles and then runs into UA. And the thing is, he has a bit of trouble finding his class, but after a bit of searching, it didn't take too long. He finally got there, and when he opened up the doors, Izuku sees some people arguing in the back. He sees people being silent, people talking to each other, just students being students, really. So Izuku, he starts using his observation haki and sort of gets a feel for how strong everyone is in this room. And while Izuku is doing that, he realizes that the teacher is right behind their desk. And Izuku, he realizes that, well, Aizawa is sleeping, so he is just gonna remain silent just in case he wakes him up or something. So Izuku slowly walks to his seat, and as he's doing this, as I said, he's like using his observation haki, and he realized how strong this guy is with like half red, half white hair. So he's definitely someone to look out for. But Izuku, once he gets to his seat, he just remains silent for the rest of the time until their teacher wakes up. And it isn't long because the class just keeps getting louder and louder as more people start coming into the classroom. And then finally Aizawa, he's had enough. He gets up and everyone is wondering who this guy is in a like sleeping bag. And he says, "My name is Aizawa. I will be your homeroom teacher." And everyone, they're like, "Oh, or teacher?" And they all sit straight, making sure to give him the utmost respect. And Aizawa just looks at them and says, "So now you want to be quiet. Whatever, I'm already awake. Let's just get this over with. Everyone grab your PE gear behind you and head out to the field." And as Aizawa said that, Uraraka was the first to notice that, was the first to remember that, like, don't they have an assembly? And Aizawa says that those are just dumb formalities that don't equate to you being a strong hero, so it's not necessary. And we're class 1A, so we're going to be proactive, like basically be the top of the top. That's why you're in class 1A. It's the best class. So everyone, they grab their PE gear and head to the locker rooms where they start changing. And Mineta, he still does his pervy stuff, looking like peeping through the hole, looking at the girls. But of course, Jiro is there to poke him in the eye, and all of the girls just laugh at Mineta in pain. So once they're finished changing, they head outside, and Aizawa is there already, and he says, "So, will the person who got the most points step up?" And Bakugou, he thought he got the most amount of points. He got 80 points, which is just a bit, like 80 villain points, which is just a bit over than what he got in canon, because in this Bakugou, like, Izuku wasn't really like a threat. He just saw how Izuku kept improving and improving, and Bakugou wanted to make sure that Izuku stayed below him. So he would train a little bit, but not anything crazy to completely change how he looks and his strength level and things like that. So Bakugou, as he was walking up, Izuku walks past him and enters the circle to Aizawa. And Aizawa turns to Bakugou and said, "Where are you going?" And Bakugou's like, "Wait, what? How many points did this dumb Deku get?" And Aizawa said, "Calm down, Bakugou. He got 436 points. Is it 436? I think it's 436. But yeah, he got 436 points. And Bakugou, he just froze in whatever he was saying. And everyone was like, that's possible? Is that even possible? 436 points? They're just so confused, because even All Might, his was like 130 something, probably. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, getting that many points is just unheard of. So when Izuku goes up, Aizawa hands him a ball and says, "How far was your longest throw in middle school?" And Izuku thought about it and said, "Maybe like 5 meters." And everyone's like, 5? They're shocked because that is not far at all. So Aizawa said, "Okay, alright, so just use your quirk and throw this ball as hard as you can." And Izuku, he just said, "Alright," so he coats his hand in this black Haki, and Bakugou, seeing this, is wondering what this is. Izuku doesn't have a quirk, what? So Izuku, he throws the ball, and this sends a massive gust of wind, sending everyone around Izuku like stumbling backwards, and even the ground beneath Izuku broke a bit. And the ball went supersonic. This ball went flying almost at light speeds, going out of the atmosphere. And Aizawa is looking down at his distance counter. It goes from 100 to 10,000 to 100,000 to 1,000,000, and then it just breaks, giving an error. And everyone is waiting for Aizawa to give them the, how far it went. And Aizawa said, "Infinity." And everyone's like, "What? How is that even possible?" And Aizawa explained that it went out of the atmosphere and is not coming back. So everyone was impressed that Izuku was able to do that with just brute strength. And Uraraka was even more impressed because she thought she would be the only one who was able to do that because, obviously she has 0 gravity. Now, after Izuku's amazing performance in that, Aizawa would have the different tests. First off would be the 50-meter dash. He would just have students run 50 meters straight while using their quirks to improve their mobility, and whatever times they get, he puts down in a book or something. And obviously some of the fastest students there would be Ida, Bakugou, Todoroki, and Izuku. They would all get top 4 in different rankings, it depends, but I would say Izuku would get probably number 2, while Ida is the only one who was able to beat him. And after that, we have tests like the grip strength, the standing long jump, repeated side steps, and then back to the ball throw. And for this, when Bakugou got his turn, he was determined to put everything into this throw. So Bakugou, he reeled his hand back and then put all of his explosion into it and threw the ball, setting off a massive explosion, propelling it forward. And the ball went flying, and Aizawa looked down at his counter, and then he saw it stop on 700 meters. And when Aizawa said this out loud to everyone there, Bakugou, he felt like his pride took a massive hit. For once, he was not able to beat Izuku at something, and this struck him to the core. And Bakugou, he was mad the entire time, and he just stormed back to the crowd and folded his arms like some angry child or something. So, like Uraraka, she would get Infinity, and everyone else, they would place wherever. It doesn't really matter. So the final results would actually be kind of interesting because the first place would be Momo Yarurozo, second would be Izuku, third Shoto, fourth Bakugou, fifth Ida, in that ranking. And a lot of people were surprised at how highly Momo was ranked, and Izuku, he was impressed as well because her quirk is probably one of the most versatile here. So after everyone's finished up with that, Aizawa sends them back to class, so they obviously go to the locker rooms again, they change and head back to the classroom. So the day goes on like usual. They have regular classes like math, Japanese, and after they're finished, everyone heads out to the cafeteria where they have a lunch. And Izuku, he sits with Ida, Uraraka, and Momo actually. But while they're all eating together, having some conversation, this alarm starts going off and everyone starts panicking, running to the exit. And Izuku and everyone at his table are really confused. And Izuku, he was trying to get everyone to remain calm, but he went to the window and realized that there were actually reporters breaking into the school. So Izuku, he was going to tell everyone, or try at least. But the same plan with Ida using Uraraka's zero gravity, that all went the same, and Ida, he told everyone to just look out of the window, use their own two eyeballs, and realize that the school isn't under attack. And even if it was, we have All Might. Like, chill out. So after everyone got under control, Izuku saw Invisible Girl run across the corner, like towards the principal's office. And Izuku, he's confused, and how he knows it's Invisible Girl, he just literally sees school uniform floating, so obviously it's Invisible Girl. So Izuku, he runs behind her to try and figure out what she's doing, and Izuku, he sees the principal's office wide open, and when he looks inside of it, all the drawers and folders, they're scattered all over the floor, and Izuku, just something runs across his mind. He's thinking maybe Invisible Girl doesn't work, works with the villains, and it's all starting to make sense because, well, she can go invisible, so obviously she would be like the main part of a villain surveillance team. And after this happened, Izuku, he didn't take it to anyone else because he doesn't have any proof. He would just be accusing her for no reason, basically. So Izuku, he kept this one to himself. But the next day at school, Aizawa informed them that they would be going on a little trip to the U.S.J. And everyone, they got really excited because at first they thought he meant the Universal Studios of Japan, because that would be amazing to go to as a school field trip. But Aizawa burst their bubble almost immediately and just said it was they were going to help their rescue training. It was a place where they would learn the basics of rescue training and helping civilians all together. So everyone, they were still excited, but not as excited as the Universal Studios of Japan, but it's whatever. So they all head into the bus where they will be driving over to the U.S.J. And while on the ride there, everyone is talking about who they think is the strongest, and Uraraka and Momo, they can't stop talking about Izuku, saying how he's probably the strongest boy there, and Mina realizes their affection towards Izuku and says, I think you two like Izuku a bit too much. And when Mina says this, Momo and Uraraka immediately go red, and they're like, but no, that's not what I meant. So Mina, she started laughing because this obviously proved that they actually had feelings towards them, because Mina just used some reverse psychology. So while the girls are doing that at the back of the bus, Izuku, he's just chilling with the homies like Kirishima, Ida, actually starting to get to know them a bit more, and he realizes Ida, he's not so bad. He just comes from a very posh background, so yeah, he can act a bit socially awkward at times. So after about a half an hour, they all arrive at the USJ, and they get out of the bus, form a single file line because, oh wait, I didn't mention it, but yeah, Ida, he's still the class president, as well as Momo. So the class presidents make sure to have everyone be really organized, and they head into the USJ. But as they're walking in, Izuku, he uses his observation Haki because he feels a bit uneasy about this place. And when he uses it, he can sense a mass of energy in the building. Like, he can't physically see it, but it's there somehow. And when they get into the USJ, they're meted by 13, the space hero, and she goes on to explain the importance of having the importance of being able to control your quirks so you don't accidentally kill someone. So after doing that, and Uraraka being really excited to see her because it's her favorite hero, they start heading down the staircase to go to the different parts of the USJ, because it is a really a highly technical facility. It has a city landscape, a lake, a snowy tundra, basically everything you can think of, it is here. Like, every rescue scenario is here. But before they go down the stairs to go to the different areas of the U.S.J, I want to say two things really quickly. One, yes, I did intentionally skip the hero versus villains. I didn't forget about it. And two, I want to have a quick flashback to the same day that the intruders came into UA. Well, quote unquote, the reporters and the press. But yeah, the villains broke into UA. And at that day, Invisible Girl actually works with All For One, and she was sent to gather data just on the different heroes and who they suspect to be the successor of All For One, of One For All, because they want to get rid of it as quickly as possible. So Mina, after seeing Izuku's incredible feats of strength, there's really only one suspect in mind for her, and that's Izuku. So when she went to the hideout, she told All For One about Izuku and his incredible strength. And just hearing that he has a strength quirk, he's like, oh yeah, easy. All right, let's wrap it up. Let's go get Izuku. It's done with. So All For One would be sending Shigaraki with as many Nomus as he wants. So we get back to the present and everyone is walking down the staircase, and that's when different purple portals start showing up, and then from out of them start pouring out villains. And Aizawa, seeing this, he immediately tells everyone to go back up the staircase, but Izuku and some other students were not budging. They were there to fight. So Aizawa, he's like, oh, I can't deal with this right now. So he rushes down as quickly as possible. And Izuku's thinking, what is Aizawa gonna do? He's not capable of like fighting villains. His quirk isn't supposed to be for hand-to-hand combat. But when Izuku sees the way how Aizawa fights using his scarf and using his quirk at a perfect timed interval, he's impressed at how versatile he can make such a straightforward quirk be. So Izuku, Todoroki, Ida, Bakugou, and Momo, they all decided to stay and protect their classmates. So they run down with Aizawa as well and start putting in work. Izuku starts beating on these villains easily, as well as everyone else there. And when Shigaraki's seeing this, he's like, why are these damn kids so strong? Kirigiri, go fetch the Nomu. And while everyone is dealing with these villains, a massive portal opens up, and from it, this dark bird-like creature with its brain exposed, and everyone is wondering what the heck this creature is. And then Shigaraki gives it an order. It says, Nomu, go take care of those kids. And the Nomu rushes at max speed towards, firstly was Bakugou, and Bakugou was like, I could take this. So he stands his ground and lets out a massive explosion at the Nomu, but he just flies through it and punches Bakugou across the face and sending him flying across the U.S.J. So Aizawa and the students start surrounding Nomu, and Aizawa is the first to act. He wraps him up in his scarf and uses his quirk to get rid of the Nomu's quirks. And with the Nomu in its weakened state, the kids there start putting in work. Momo, she makes a cannon and fires a massive cannonball at the Nomu. Ida, he's running at max speed, kicking it. Todoroki, he's sending glaciers of ice into the Nomu. And Izuku, he's using his armament Haki to do as much damage as possible against the Nomu. And with that, the Nomu was actually dead. They dealt enough damage fast enough to completely kill the Nomu and crush its brain. So after this, Shigaraki was not having it, and he said, Kirigiri, bring them all. So a bunch of portals start opening up, and Nomus on top of Nomu start walking out. It's at least 20 of them. And Aizawa is looking at these beasts and he's saying, we won't be able to take all of them. We need to run and get back up. We need All Might unseen. And everyone there has enough sense to, run, because they're not going to be able to take all of these down. But Izuku, he looked at this army of Nomu and he knows they won't have enough time to get back up, and well, Kurogiri, he's blocking the door so they won't be able to get back up. So Izuku, he knows that he needs to do something about it, and he has his own abilities up his sleeves. Izuku starts covering his whole body in his spiritual energy and using armament Haki, and his entire body goes completely pitch black and Izuku enters a new form. Izuku's armament Haki starts to form into All Might. It looked like a blacked out version of All Might, and everyone was looking like, what is this? And Izuku, he ran at the Nomu and he punched its brain in and splattered it all across the ground. And Izuku kept stomping it and stomping it, making sure it does not regenerate, and it works. Izuku starts going around completely massacring these Nomu, and Kurogiri or Shigaraki can't do anything about it. Well, when Kurogiri tries using a portal, Izuku, he's fast enough to dodge the portal. That's how quick this guy is. And once he's finished up with the Nomu, he immediately goes for Shigaraki. So Kurogiri quickly puts up a portal in between him and his master, but Izuku just goes around it, kicking Shigaraki down into the ground and kept repeatedly stomping on his head, and soon enough, Shigaraki was dead. And Kurogiri, he looked at his master and then to Izuku, and he knows he has to go back to All For One, so he teleports out before Izuku can grab him. And he goes straight to All For One, telling him about what happened at the U.S.J. and how Shigaraki has fallen. All For One, hearing this, grew enraged. His perfect creation killed it that easily. So while Kurogiri is getting All For One to arrive on scene, All Might and the other heroes are finally here, because once Kurogiri teleported away, Ida was out of there. He sped out to get to the UA and get the teachers back and everyone. So finally, once all the teachers are there, there is a portal that opens up, and it wasn't the usual purple looking one. It was more like sludge, and from it came One For All. And All Might, being on scene, he looked at One For All and he was surprised. He thought he was dead. So All Might, he walked up, and All For One sees All Might and said, "Oh, you look mad, what? You thought you killed me?" And All Might, he didn't respond. This was the angriest some people have ever seen All Might. And All For One said, "This is gonna be a good fight. Your successor killed mine. Well, once I'm through with you, I'll kill him." So All For One and All Might start going into a heated fight, similar to what it was in canon, creating massive wind tornadoes, breaking down the U.S.J. itself, like parts of the roof are flying off. And Aizawa, he starts evacuating everyone out, while Izuku, he just can't leave. What if All Might was beaten by this guy? He needs backup, and what's this talk about successor? Izuku, he barely even knows All Might, so he's confused at what this villain is even saying. So All Might, he's being beaten up pretty bad right now, but he's doing a lot better because at this point in time, All Might, he is stronger than when he encountered All For One in canon, like when they had their fight. But that doesn't stop All For One from using some dirty tricks to get a one-up on All Might, like hitting his injury in his stomach and just giving him sucker punches out of nowhere. So Izuku, he's seeing All Might being beaten this badly, so he knew he had to run in. He's exhausted from using that much of his spiritual energy, but it's just a cost he has to pay. He has to protect his class and All Might. And if All Might gets beaten right here, that's gonna spell the end of a time of peace in Japan. So Izuku, he runs in, coating his entire body in armament Haki, and he takes the form of a, well, blacked out All Might, like All Might, but he's completely colored black basically. So Izuku, without hesitation, he rushes in and out of nowhere gives a right hook right in All For One's face, sending him flying across the U.S.J. And All Might looks at Izuku and says, "Kid, what is that? What is this power?" And Izuku, he doesn't respond to All Might, and he just extends a hand to him, and All Might grabs his hand and gets up off the ground. So the both of them start doing combination attacks against All For One. The best I can describe it is the fight from the MHA Two Heroes movie, when they were fighting Wolfram, if I'm getting the name right. Yeah, All Might and Deku versus, yeah, that guy. So Izuku and All Might are dealing these almost deadly blows to All For One, and All For One, he is feeling the incredible pain from this fight and just being exhausted overall. So Izuku and All Might both get ready to land their final hits. So with All For One exhausted and he can barely even move at this point, Izuku and All Might both run at him and punch right in his head, caving his skull in, completely killing him on the spot. And with that, the threat of All For One was completely removed from this world. After this, All Might, he had experienced incredible damage from this fight, and he could still return into his buff form, but he would mainly stay in his skinny form most of the time. And of course, Izuku would have Invisible Girl arrested because he knows that she was the UA traitor. And with that, the schooling for all of them would go pretty much like normal, like every other UA student. The sports festival would be a blast to watch. There was no interruptions in Hosu City, things like that. But Izuku, when he got out of UA, he would ascend to be one of the greatest heroes of all time, making Rayleigh a proud mentor. And that is where I'm going to be leaving this one off. I did end this pretty quick, but I just wanted to get this what if out for you guys that have been waiting for a literal month. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Of course, if you like the video, like. And if you like my content in general, consider subscribing. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next what if.